Okay, welcome to Startup Grind Monterey Bay. Our guest tonight is Dada, and he is an author, mentor, speaker of the mind, and welcome, and love to hear kind of how you became who you are.
Thanks for inviting me to Startup Grind. I've attended a number of Startup Grind events as in the audience, so it's kind of neat to be on the other side. I'll give you a little bit of background. So, one of the questions I get most frequently, and sometimes people don't ask this straight up. They might approach me afterwards and kind of shyly ask me, "Why are you dressed like that?" And I realize they've been sitting there for an hour through a concert or a presentation or something, and that's all that's been in their mind. So I like to address this at the beginning, so that the mind is free of that, rather mundane question. So it's very simple. I'm from New Zealand, and everybody in New Zealand dresses like this.
Wow.
You didn't know that, did you? No, really, I'm a monk from the Ananda yoga tradition. So it's a very old form of yoga and meditation that I teach and practice, and I studied this in India a long time ago with a very great spiritual master. His name was Sri Anandamurti. So, but yeah, how did I get from growing up in New Zealand to doing that? Well, I'll give you the short version, okay?
Okay.
I don't want to tell you my life story. So I was in university in Wellington, and when I was really young, I was fascinated by lots of different things: marine biology, art, music, psychology. But the thing that really captured my imagination was Lord of the Rings, and that was kind of my religion. So I wanted to be a wizard. That was my ambition.
That is a very good ambition to have.
Yeah, it's a little unrealistic perhaps, but Then I grew up a bit, and I was also into music. So I'd been playing music since I was very small, and so when I became a teenager, I heard a concert by a band called Led Zeppelin.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And they came to New Zealand, and I guess this must have been 1972. And there's 14,000 people in the audience, which is a very big audience in New Zealand.
That is, yeah.
And they were going to release the fourth album the following day. So all of us heard Stairway to Heaven for the first time live.
Oh, wow.
And it was a religious experience.
Come in. Come on in.
Hey.
Welcome.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
We'll edit you out.
Okay.
Just wait.
Yeah. So this huge audience for New Zealand. We heard the first time we heard Stairway to Heaven. It was live.
Oh, wow.
And it was
Wow.
a pretty astonishing experience. So then I wanted to be a rock star. This was my new ambition. It was more
Wizard to rock star.
more realistic than being a wizard. A little bit more.
A little bit of the same, a little mystique.
Yeah, definitely. And then I grew a little older, went to university, and I had a very overwhelming kind of spiritual experience there when I was about 19, and it really made me wonder about sort of deeper questions of what the meaning of life is, and I started reading about mysticism, reading Taoism and Buddhism and Zen and yoga and Christian mysticism, all these things that I had no interest in previously. And I started practicing meditation, and after a few months I met a monk, kind of like myself, except he was Italian.
Okay.
And I thought he was wonderful, and he taught me meditation, and I've been practicing this kind of meditation, evolving with different techniques, but been practicing it ever since.
Wow.
So that was in 1975. So that's been. I went to India a few years later, and that was where I've studied and was ordained as a monk after some pretty rigorous training, I should say.
How long did that take?
Well, from when I left in 1975, I learned meditation. I became monk about 3 years later, 3.5 years later. So I was 23.
Wow.
Which is a pretty big step to take when you're that age.
Wizard, rock star, monk.
I don't know if I could do it again. I mean, it was like I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm really glad. I have no regrets.
Okay. Now, Once you became a monk, how long were you in India before you traveled? Where was the next place that you landed?
So once we've sort of graduated, then we get assigned or posted somewhere in the world. So I was sent to back to Australia, where I had been.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in Australia, about 10 years. And then I was in Europe for 10 years, mostly Western Europe. Went to a lot of countries in Europe, and then different parts of Southeast Asia. I was going to India pretty much every year for a long time, and then in the Middle East for a while. I went around the world 3 times. I had a global responsibility overseeing our teacher training, and I ended up in the US 9 years ago. So
well, I was just going to ask you.
I'm a
when
Californian.
Very cool.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I was really attracted to this particular style of meditation, if you like, was because I think of it as a kind of radical yoga. So our founder, the founder of this movement, he was really a visionary kind of thinker. He was really into taking the ideas or principles of yoga and mysticism and applying them to real world problems.
Okay.
And so he described this philosophy as a blend. He said it was a happy blending of Oriental mysticism and Occidental rationality.
Okay.
So it sounds a little pompous, but it was. But really, he was saying he was taking the best of Western philosophy and things like humanism and environmentalism and human rights and the idea of equality, and blending that with the deep mystical tradition of India.
Okay.
And so that's why we're a spiritual organization. We teach spiritual practices, but we're also a social service and organization. We have a lot of development projects in the developing world, and so that's a big part of our mission as well.
And could you talk a little bit more about that, the mission
Sure.
of the organization, and how it's grown, and where you've seen it come from, starting to where it's gone?
Well, it started before when I was actually the year I was born.
Okay.
It was founded in 1955, so a lot happened by the time I sort of discovered this. But it started in India, and then in the late 60s and 70s really came to the US and right across the world, and the monks were sent to kind of spread these teachings and then establish schools and projects. And we have like 7 big social service projects in Haiti,
Oh, wow.
which is the poorest country in this hemisphere. So we have actually a big establishment there, much bigger than we have in the US actually. We've focused
more.
Well, yeah, we've actually focused more of our resources and energy in places where there is a more critical need,
Okay.
and in the Congo and odd places, Vietnam, unexpected places. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you're the monk dude. So how did you get from everything you've just explained to us to now going and I mean, it seems like it would be a natural fit, speaking out and sharing what your knowledge of mindfulness and meditation. But how did you become the monk dude?
Well, I don't know how one becomes a monk dude. It's a brand, right?
Yes, of course. But
so,
it's a very unique brand.
Well, brands are supposed to be unique, so that's. I have a wonderful friend. He's a musician. His name's Premick Russell Tubbs. He's a real dude. He's an actual dude. And how do you become a real dude? You play with people like Carlos Santana and John McLaughlin and Herbie Hancock and Whitney Houston. That's him.
Yeah.
Okay, and he once played with me, so I'm sort of daunted by that. But he's a wonderful guy, really into meditation, and he started calling me the dude monk.
The dude.
So I thought, well, if he says I'm a dude, I'm a dude. So that's how I think I qualified,
Yeah.
if there is such a thing. But I did. I actually hesitated. I thought this is kind of a little weird, and some of the other monks thought he's not taking himself seriously enough, and this is not. But I thought, who cares?
Rebel monk.
And I tried it out in the conference. It was actually a marketing conference, and people were scared to talk to me. There were about 400 people there, and I could tell everybody's scared to talk to me because maybe they think I'm a religious fanatic, or I'm going to lay a trip on them, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Black magic. I don't know what they were imagining, but people weren't coming up to me, right? And I was finding it, there was a barrier there. And then we were given an exercise. We were supposed to come back the next day, and some of us had like 30 seconds to say what we'd done with the exercise. And so I got it and I said, well, last night I reserved the domain name for themonkdude.com. And everybody cheered, because it dropped that barrier.
Yeah.
Because they understood that, he doesn't take himself too seriously. And after that, I was everybody's friend. So I thought, this is a good brand.
It is a very good brand. I mean, it's, as soon as you handed me, I believe, your business card, I said, gotta talk to you.
It works.
Now, where's that journey taken you? I've seen, and we've discussed a couple times, but it's you're going to these very large brands in Silicon Valley and helping them. And can you talk a little bit about how you're helping them, and not only the brands and these companies, but the individual employees that work for them?
So yeah, I teach meditation and mindfulness and creative thinking and innovative thinking for some companies, and that's kind of what I love doing, because I'm not just very interested in meditation and how it can benefit you, but also in the whole creative process, and how meditation can help you to tap into your imagination and kind of connect you to your muse, your kind of source of inspiration. And there's some what's changed in the environment in the last 8 to 10 years particularly, or maybe even more recently, is the research. So there's a huge amount of research now confirming that meditation has all of these, all sorts of benefits. One of them is that it helps creative thinking, but the best known one is that it helps to manage stress, it reduces anxiety, it helps with sleep disorder, it may even, certainly helps with depression, or not always but often. It may even help with dementia, though it's probably too early to claim that very clearly, but that's sort of on the horizon. There's a whole string, better, more focus, clearer decision making, improved emotional intelligence, anger management. There's probably 100 benefits that are being sort of proven now through research, which practitioners have kind of known about for about 7,000 years, but it's kind of nice that to have people believe in you. Yeah. So that's opened some doorways for somebody as unusual looking as me to introduce these practices in a sort of corporate environment. And so of course, there's a whole lot of problems that people have in this very successful business environment like Silicon Valley. I mean, that's leading the world in technology and huge amounts of money, and I think it's the 12th biggest economy in the world, just Silicon Valley. Not even the whole of California. It's crazy, but it's way out of balance.
Yes, I saw that news article today. I think it was a very small house went for like $2 million.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it was $640,000 or so above market value.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's sold.
So all of this wealth and sort of brilliance and excitement is bringing a lot of problems as well. So there's of course housing problem is very well known. The traffic's getting crazier all the time. Yes. But there's more invisible problems. What's happening inside people, and there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of abuse of antidepressants, alcohol, and there's this kind of hidden kind of dark side to it. Yeah. And something like meditation and mindfulness is a really, really good way of helping to ameliorate that, helping to balance that out, and helping people whose minds are so busy that they can't control them, helping them to bring that back into some sort of internal harmony. So it's a really powerful tool. It's been pretty well tested. It's the most tested method of mental development in the history of the world, I guess.
Yes.
It's been around that long.
Have you seen any specific things in Silicon Valley or in the Bay Area? Have you noticed any trends or anything like that that meditation can help with? I mean, I know you just explained quite a few, but is there one that you've noticed specifically in the area that people need help with?
There's quite a lot, but I think the one that comes most that's most obvious is way too much stress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an epidemic. It's like everybody. You ask them, how are you? I'm so busy, and it's become a badge of honor. But what they're really saying is, I'm actually suffering. They may not even say that consciously, but actually they're suffering because they've got too much on their plate.
Yeah.
And they can't manage it. And what happens is, their family suffers. They in the long term, this is really harmful. I mean, you get this serious diseases
Mm-hmm.
coming out of excessive, prolonged stress. So that's the number one problem. That's the most obvious one, I would say.
Okay.
I actually think the substance abuse one is more serious. But that's it's
Is
symptomatic.
it a symptom, of distress?
It's self-medicating. So.
Yeah.
To alleviate the first problem.
Yes.
So many companies have already started adopting different, some sort of meditation practice because they've seen that this is a way of helping with this that doesn't have all these negative side effects. It's not, it's addictive in a good way.
Yeah.
Instead of on the bottle, be all the side effects, kidney failure and sweating and then eventually, suicide or whatever.
Yes.
Instead of all that, you've got this list of unintended benefits from meditation.
Yeah.
So there are big companies in the Bay Area that have actively developed meditation programs in-house, like Salesforce, Google, Facebook have a big meditation club. It's pretty widespread. SAP and most of the big companies, I think.
Okay.
In the US, about 25% of corporations have some kind of mindfulness or meditation program. And in the Bay Area, it's way more than 25%.
Yeah, I think
So that is being used to, begin, as a way of coping with the stress and the all of the outcomes of that. So that's already happening.
Could you walk us through kind of what maybe one of your times at a company would look like? Are there any like tips or tricks that you could kind of give away to the audience?
You want me to teach you meditation in 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure. If you have something
that's kind of difficult.
help people.
I'll tell you a couple of things.
Yeah.
So meditation it's often used synonymously with the word mindfulness now,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not really the same thing. There's overlap.
Okay.
So mindfulness simply means being in the present, paying attention to what I'm doing now, instead of thinking about what I probably won't actually do tomorrow and regretting what I did yesterday. So, think about it, how much of your time are you actually completely focused and not distracted?
As much as I like.
Right.
Yeah.
Not distracted by thoughts of other places or other times particularly. So mindfulness means being in the present, being focused. And there are certain types of activities that induce that. One of the favorites is surfing. If you talk to a surfer, if you're on the wave, you have to be present, otherwise you fall off. Okay? And so people talk about getting into the zone when they're surfing, or maybe when they're playing music, or I know people who do this when they're coding. And then it becomes a joyful experience because you're completely engaged in doing something that you're good at.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. Racing car drivers, again, have to.
Yeah.
And that's
Turns come up fast.
Yeah. And part of the reason people get so hooked on those kind of activities is because it forces them to be in the zone, and that's what really makes it joyful.
Okay.
So what we're doing in meditation is kind of training ourselves to be like that more of the time. So it's a concentration exercise. And what they often teach in I'd say a simple mindfulness practice is watching the breath. So this is a very typical exercise. I'm not going to do that here now because you can learn that anywhere, right? I want to tell you a little bit about what I do that I feel adds something to that. So that definitely is a meditative practice, and it's a part of the larger set of meditation practices, watching the breath or focusing on, they do a body scan where you'll gradually concentrate on different parts of the body and deliberately relax. So that's a conscious relaxation technique, which is, again, meditative.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, meditation goes a step beyond that. And there's a nice definition of meditation, which is that it is the contemplation of the infinite.
I think that's a very good
So
definition.
there's a qualitative difference there from just watching the mind, watching the breath, or observing your thoughts. Okay? Here we're talking about the contemplation of the infinite. What does that mean? It means you're really considering what is actually going on behind all of this, behind my mind, behind the universe. There's something that's beyond our imagination, and it's always there. And that has a very interesting effect. When you focus on that, it expands your sphere of consciousness.
Yes.
You're trying to imagine it, but you can't grasp it. But your mind sort of reaches out and dilates in a sense, and it gives you perspective. Okay, so that you can begin to really see yourself from a kind of a higher self, or a kind of higher perspective, and understand yourself much better. And it can take you to places that just concentrating on your breath cannot. So that's one qualitative difference between what I would call a simple mindfulness practice and what I would really call a spiritual meditation, or a contemplation of the infinite. Now, one of the techniques that I use a lot, because I'm a musician, I'm the failed rock star, if you like. Well, I gave up trying, I guess, maybe, but I'm sure, I doubt that I would have been a rock star. Though I had a taste of it. I've played with great rock musicians. But I use music.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that to help to take people into a different emotional state. Because if you come along and you want to sit down, and your teacher says, okay, now sit up straight and close your eyes and just watch your breath, or just focus on your heart or something like that, what's going to happen? Within a few seconds, you're thinking of something else. You're worried about something.
If you can't control the mind,
yeah,
it's hard enough to
there's
do
a lot.
that.
There's a lot going on, so it's very difficult to sustain that because the mind's already very active.
Okay.
Because behind all those thoughts, there's emotions, and that's what really disturbs you. Okay, so music is the language of emotion. You can change. It's the quickest legal way to change your state of mind. Right? Is listen to some music that you really love.
Yeah.
And so you can just, you can listen to it, or even better is to sing it or play it yourself, because then your body's engaged, and it has a very interesting effect on your brain. There's some neat research into music that they concluded that this is actually playing music or singing is the only exercise that engages the whole brain all at once.
Wow.
It's like a whole brain exercise, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important for children. It's very, very important for the brain development of children. It really helps. So what I do with a group, when I go into a company, I get them to sing. And I got all these people in, they're all engineers and marketers, and everybody's so serious, and they're all worried about making money or solving problems. I get them to sing, and it changes their mood. And they forget about their problems and making money and all their anxieties and things, because their whole mind and body's engaged in something that they don't usually do.
Yeah.
And it takes them into a different state very quickly, and then we meditate.
Okay.
And it's so much easier. I've had people come up to me. I was at Facebook, I gave a talk there, and a lady came up to me afterwards, and she said, she was almost in tears, She said, I really want to thank you. I've been trying to watch my mind doing this mindfulness meditation for 2 years. And this little 6-minute exercise we did with the music was the first time I felt anything. Now, I've heard that 100 times. And
You're onto something.
Well, this is not my idea. This is a very old tradition. I'm just passing it on.
Yeah.
But I think without the emotional element and a way of engaging the emotions and dealing with them, it's hard to meditate. You're kind of fighting your mind.
Yeah.
But if you have this way, a very easy way, it's easier than meditating. Singing's a lot easier than meditating. If you have this, easy way that even a child can do it, of shifting your emotional state, then meditation becomes much easier.
Okay.
So I see my job as kind of being helping people who feel that they ought to meditate find a way to do it more easily. Because I see people at conferences. I go to a lot of conferences and stuff, and I was at a conference the other day, and a guy on stage, he basically apologized for the fact that he doesn't meditate regularly. So now it's become something new to feel guilty about, and to worry about, and to get anxious about, and stressed about. So it just kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. I've never heard that. Yeah.
Oh, I've heard it more than once, and now I watch for it, and I see it's happening more and more. People are sort of, oh, I'm supposed to meditate, and I didn't, and they're getting all anxious about it. And I thought, you know, you need a way. We need a way to make it easier, and it's there. I mean, it's been around for a long time.
Now, that actually goes into my next question. You know, we're starting to see a lot of tech, connected tech that wearable tech.
Good point.
So, you know, I'm very interested in my own mind. How can I hack my mind to be a better entrepreneur, be a better person, be a better dad, all that stuff. And so I research things that I can do myself because I like doing it myself. And I've seen there's some open source projects coming out now for connecting to your own mind. And obviously Elon, it was all over the news about connecting us to the internet, or at least to a computer to begin with.
The neural net thing.
Yes, the neural net.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And so do you, coming from a more traditional sense, how do you bridge that gap, or have you bridged that gap yet? Do you see it as something that is going to be more beneficial to the populace, or do you see it as something that may actually hinder people being able to get more in tune with themselves?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I'm a big fan of technology, and I'm a musician. I love technology. I mean, I play electric instruments, and you make it really loud so 10,000 people can hear you. You know, that's
it's the rock star.
Yeah, I like it. Don't get me wrong, and I love film and these media and the things that technology's enabled. And you know, I had my first go flying somebody's camera drone the other day, a really nice one. And it's really good fun. You know, it's the kind of thing you dream of as a kid, you know, when you're not busy being a wizard or whatever it is. Okay, so technology, can the technology help us to meditate? Well, yeah, I use recorded music. I have some. I'm building an app, but I actually put some guided meditations in someone else's app, and 10,000 people have listened to it, and I get all these hundreds of reviews of how it's helped them. So great. I think recorded guided meditations can be very helpful. Then, of course, there's the sort of more sophisticated things like, you know, biofeedback and neural binaural, what are they called? Binaural beats.
Binaural beats.
Yeah, binaural beats and all of that. Regarding those, and even the guided meditations, I think of them as training wheels. All right? They're very useful for helping people to develop their concentration and develop a meditation practice. But in the end, you know, you can't go to the gym and have somebody else do it for you. Yeah. You got to do the pull-ups and the sit-ups and the swimming and the bicycle. You got to do it. You need to exercise your brain if you want to improve your concentration. And you know, you can't have a machine do it for you. It doesn't work like that.
That's true.
But they really can be very useful for getting you into it, and sort of baby steps to onto the path of practicing. And
so
then of
you see
course,
it more as like a training.
Well, yeah, I see it as a tool that can help you to meditate, but it's not a substitute for meditation.
Yes.
But it can be a very useful thing to get you into it and make it easier. And I mean, just a reminder, you know, your little thing goes ding, time to meditate, and here's the music, and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, I don't meditate enough. But
are you feeling guilty at this moment?
No, because I'm learning right now. But so where do you see, you know, one thing I see is people kind of, there's an expanded consciousness kind of happening. I just feel it. And I'm wondering if it's something that you've seen as well or felt as well, where you see that people want to explore meditation and mindfulness, and you see actually it trending up, where, I don't know, to me it seems like people are just now really starting to explore their own brain.
Well, yeah, definitely, but these things go in waves, because this happened big time in 1968 and, you know, early 70s, and there was a huge wave of people discovering meditation when my generation discovered that. and yours. So there's a whole lot of people that have been meditating for 40 years already.
Yeah.
The ones that stuck with it, okay? And then the ones that sort of went off to India and kind of never came back, like me. You know? But there's a lot of other people that sort of discovered this, and you know, people that are doing cool stuff. Steve Jobs is a case in point,
Yeah.
or was case in point. He discovered meditation in India, came back here and was practicing it all of his life, and used to give copies of Autobiography of a Yogi to everybody. So it's not like this is a new discovery, and that's, you know, of course, this is thousands of years old. But these things tend to go in waves. So there was this sort of, you know, the baby boomer generation. A lot of these people discovered meditation, and then it kind of went down a bit in the 80s and the 90s even. But now it's come up again, and again I'd say it's because, well, there's two things driving it. One is the research, which I've already talked about a little.
The big data.
Big data, whatever. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can prove that meditation works with, you know, fMRI scans and EEG graphs, and you know, it's very it's been demonstrated again and again. I'm aware of more than 4,000 experiments that, or sort of published papers on this.
Oh, wow.
It's big. But the other thing, of course, that's driving it is increased stress because of the technology. So on the one hand, technology is enabling us to prove that meditation is a solution to our problem that is now being exacerbated by technology. We're really clever.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
we like to go in circles.
So, you know, there's definitely a big upsurge in the levels of stress because of distracting devices. Well, a friend of mine calls weapons of mass distraction.
Yeah.
So, you know, how many times do we check our phones? There's still incredible numbers on how many times people compulsively check their phones and all of that. And
Is it
worse and
Neil
worse.
Ayer? I can't remember pronounce his name. It's the book on hooked applications and building things.
Oh, Hooked.
Things hooked. Yeah.
Yeah, I met that guy. He's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah,
He
really
works
cool.
at Stanford.
Yeah, and I mean it's true.
Near Ayan, yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. You know, and the devices do distract us a lot of times, and from focus as well. It literally distracts you from being able to even focus on anything.
It's very bad for concentration, which means that you need to exercise your concentration muscles all the more, which is, you know, and meditation is a form of that. And this is for us discovering this as adults. What about the generation that's growing up with this? I'm concerned about what kind of effect that's going to have on your kids.
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
so
that
forth,
is-
you know,
that's-
that's. I think it's going to be very serious. You know, some people are now saying that, you know, the children shouldn't be allowed to have phones before they're 10 or something like that. I tend to agree. I think we, you know, started with no kids going out and playing in nature anymore, and now it's, you know, then video games and now this intense addiction to devices, and this kind of window onto this electronic world, but you're always looking through, but you don't look at your own world anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's very unhealthy and imbalanced. It's a big problem. So that's driving
I have hope in
people
the kids,
towards
though.
meditation.
Yeah, I you know, and I see people teaching their children meditation now.
Yep.
You know, quite a bit, and there's more schools that are opening up that
Yep.
encourage it, which is great. There's actually a great school in here in Santa Cruz County called Orchard School, which is kids are playing out in the orchard all day.
Wonderful.
There's I think they have like 1 or 2 computers, if that, but
Great.
they're doing pottery and archery and going out and just playing in nature, and I think we need more schools like that.
I completely agree. And even where that sounds great. But even in more regular schools, there's a big movement to bring meditation into schools. It's well established in the San Francisco school district and a lot of other school districts here. Big in Ohio, where Tim Ryan, the congressman from Ohio, is pushing that. Not Pat Ryan, Tim Ryan. He's a Democrat. And then it's in prisons, in the police force. There's a police superintendent in Arizona. She's speaking about this on TV. She has all her officers meditating because it reduces unconscious bias.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's something I think every police force could use.
It's pretty acute,
military
right?
and police force.
Yeah.
But, that's huge.
So that's another, again, the research shows that meditation reduces unconscious bias. And so that's why I'm saying the science drives it, because that's the religion of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got good research, and you need to be discriminating about this because there are some claims that are not really validated, but that one's pretty solid.
Wow. So, where do you see yourself expanding your brand? I mean, do you have global aspirations?
I thought you were going to say expanding my brain.
It's already, yeah, it's already there. It's already there. But, I mean, where do you see yourself going beyond Silicon Valley? Do you in speaking your message other places, or do you like the traveling aspect?
I have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I don't need. I mean, that goes
It's
to the whole world,
global,
right?
yes.
And so I came to the Startup Grind conference in Redwood City where we met.
Yes.
When was that? Was that in February?
End of February.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people there, a lot of people. And not only did I meet the wonderful Pete Bigot, but I met a guy who came up to me, and his name is Kalin, and he said, you know, I know you, that you're Dada Nabhaniilananda, and I said, yeah. And he says, well, I'm Kalin, I'm from Bulgaria. And did you know you have a fan following of your YouTube channel in Bulgaria? Mm-hmm. And I sort of thought, I didn't know that. I wouldn't have imagined that. And apparently, he and a bunch of friends, they watch a lot of my videos, and now he's writing to me. They're going to translate my book my meditation book into its 13th language is going to be Bulgarian, and they want to bring me there and do some event with some. I don't know,
That's
sponsors.
amazing though, because I have a feeling their tech scene there is going to take off pretty fast.
Well,
if
they have
that's
a tech
something
scene.
that they're practicing.
Well, yeah, but HP are already there. Samsung are there. You know, it's in Eastern Europe. There's a lot of tech people. There really a lot of you know, the former communist nations. There's a lot of engineers.
Yes.
And the Russians are
Some of
the
them.
Russians are the best hackers.
Yeah.
You know. At least that's what they claim.
yeah. Well, yeah. You know, didn't San Francisco lose power the other day? Yeah. Well.
So as far as going, you know, I've traveled a lot. I've been to more than 50 countries, and
yeah, that's quite a few.
I've sort of done that. I mean, of course, I like going. I love Bali. I'd like to go there again. There's, you know, not
Let me know when we're going.
I'm not saying I don't want to travel anymore, but I don't want to travel all the time anymore. I'm really tired of it. I love Silicon Valley, and I love the Bay Area and Northern California. It's some of the most beautiful nature spots on the planet, and so I'm really disinclined to travel unless somebody comes up with some really exotic invite, like going to Bulgaria for something, you know. But so I see, sort of physically, I'm more focused on staying here, and I have this kind of dream of creating a kind of spiritual leadership training community, sort of retreat center somewhere in the Bay Area. That's my kind of dream, which I'm talking about. There's a group of us talking about this. And I hope that comes to pass in the next few years.
And so you're looking like an entire center? Is that what you're thinking, like developing a center?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess, is there anything that you'd like to kind of hidden wisdom messages or anything that you'd like to leave it with us, and then I'd like to open it up to the group for some questions.
Well, I don't know if this is wisdom or not, but it's just my take on this. And that is, if you have this idea that meditation is just about reducing stress and sort of diminishing some kind of problem, that's the only it's true, it does that. If you practice, it can really help you. But that's the least interesting part of it. The interesting part is that it can develop all these parts of your mind and all these capabilities that, you know, like creativity and the ability to make really clear-minded decisions and to relate to people more warmly and develop empathy, and it can actually make you into really the kind of person you want to be. And it takes work, but it's really worth it.
I actually have the first question. What would you suggest as the like a good amount of time for someone to meditate every day to kind of at least get into the habit? Because it, like most things, I'm sure it takes some habitual actions to make sure you get into the meditation before it just becomes part of your daily
Yeah, I think more important than how long you sit for is how often you sit. Much more important. So how often? Minimum once a day. The goal is twice a day. And I would say in the beginning, it doesn't matter if you sit for 1 minute. Sit twice a day. Okay? And then build it up. And your goal might be, a reasonable goal, maybe in a month's time, or, I was a fanatic, from day one. So I would sort of, my teacher told me, you have to meditate half an hour in the morning and half an hour at night. And I said, okay. And I was just kind of his dream student. I'd do whatever he said, But I don't expect that of my students. I tell them, if you want to develop a practice, you meditate twice a day. And I don't care how long you sit for. But I suggest that you aim for 20 minutes twice a day, but that might take you 6 months, or it might take you a week. So it's kind of, but the main thing is to do it regularly. Because it's like, it works like a compound effect, It's just like compound interest for your brain. Okay?
Yeah.
So in the short term, nothing much happens, right? But then gradually it builds up. And when you look back over a year or 2 years or 5 years, wow, the whole landscape's changed.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Well, open up for questions.
How has your worldview changed from the way that you do the meditation?
My worldview, I have more trust in people. When I first started out doing this, I was, cynical's not the right word, but I didn't have much faith in human nature. I thought people were pretty mean, wiping out animals and one another and making poor people starve when they've got more than they need. And it seemed like there was so much lack of love and compassion and feeling of connection and oneness. So that exists. But what I've seen is that people can change. And I've met amazing people who've done incredible things. Not all of them meditate. Some of them are just like that, or just their circumstances or their personalities like that. But I've seen people also develop those sort of qualities of compassion and a feeling of really caring about other people through their meditation. So my worldview has become more optimistic, much more optimistic. I believe that the future is bright.
Yes, I have a question, Dada. For meditation, do you have any recommendations as far as positioning yourself? Is sitting down okay, or a lotus position? What would be your recommendation?
Sit straight.
Sit straight, sit straight.
There are different options, but sit straight, vertical, not lying down.
Yes, yes.
Not like I'm sitting now, straight. If somebody says, concentrate, automatically you sit straight. It's because we know that then we breathe better, the energy and the chakras and all that flows better. So sitting straight is the number one requirement. Then there are other details. Yeah, sitting in the lotus posture, if you can do that, is good. It helps concentration, or variations. There are other postures for meditation.
Yeah.
So my question is related more based on my meditation practice. So I started it 10 years ago, and that time I used to be like pretty short-tempered and maybe have the negative emotions like jealousy or annoyance or other things like normal human beings have. But over the past 10 years, I've noticed this gradual change in me that nowadays, even if negative emotion starts, it doesn't stay because of the meditation practice, I feel. So is it a common that it happens with everyone, or is it just like maybe the longevity of the meditation has made that change in my behavior or my thought process? Like nowadays, toxic emotions have no place to stay in my head, pretty much.
Yeah, what you're reporting, if you have a regular practice that you use, this is typical. This is quite typical of a good, a solid regular practice. Definitely, you're going to become more emotionally healthy, and of course, then you'll treat yourself better. I mean, sort of, in the way that you think about yourself and the way that you react to your own, crazy. Everyone's got a crazy person inside, honestly, but and it's still there, but you kind of learn to make friends with this. And so, this is a typical kind of outcome. But you know, you're still human. We've still got
Yeah.
weaknesses, but you know, you just become better. And again, I've seen people that have been meditating for 40 years and they still have problems, but they're you know, but they're not as acute or they're not as debilitating or crippling as they might have been. Another thing that one of my favorite pieces of research actually is that it demonstrates that the meditation changes your baseline of happiness. Now, this is a concept in psychology. You may have heard of it. That you know, we have a kind of default level of happiness once we're adults that we return to, even if something traumatic happens. You know, maybe you get divorced and you're really upset for maybe a year or two, but you come back to this sort of your normal level, and then you get a promotion at work and you're all happy, and then you come back down to that normal level. And this is pretty universally accepted in psychology, that this doesn't really change over your life as an adult, except they've now discovered that meditation is the only thing that can actually raise your baseline of happiness over time.
Do you have a theory on why that happens?
Yeah, I know why it happens. Because what meditation is really doing is training you to identify with that part of yourself which is already happy, which is within us. There is this source of consciousness. So in philosophy you might call it the Atma. In yoga philosophy we call it the Atman. That might translate as the soul, but if you don't believe in the soul, doesn't matter. We have self-awareness, the sense of I, and this is kind of the undeniable thing that we know is true, even if everything else is a dream. Okay, so that's the what the solipsists say. They say that everything else, you know, the only thing that exists is your self-awareness.
Okay.
I'm not a solipsist. They're weird Greek philosophers. But this sense of I is our source of awareness. It remains with us from at least birth, before birth actually, up until death. Even when you're dreaming, you still feel I'm me, right?
Yeah.
When you're a kid, I'm me. When you're an adult, I'm me, right? Everything else changes. The interesting thing is it's the only thing we have in common. I feel it. You feel it. I'm assuming you all know that you exist.
Yes.
Okay.
I know the research is kind of.
It's prior to everything else.
Yeah.
You know, research may or may not exist. I exist.
That's true.
Even a fourth thought.
It's a thing that enables our experience of being alive, right?
Mhm.
So it's in yoga philosophy, this is considered to be the fundamental reality, the awareness. So what we're doing in meditation is training ourselves to identify with that core, unchanging awareness. And when we do that, there is this natural state. We call it ananda. It means bliss. Or it means limitless bliss, actually. That you begin to feel it, and that's the natural outcome of meditation. And so when I read this research, I think, yeah, knew that, but it's kind of
Feel it.
It's nice to know. I've experienced it,
Yeah.
but it's nice to know that it's measurable, so that people who haven't had the opportunity to enjoy that and you know, get that benefit, they believe in it, and enough that they'll make the effort.
Make the effort. Any other questions?
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned that music was a really good way to change, like the number one thing to use to change the mood, right?
Well, it's the quickest way, as I said, the quickest legal way to change your state of mind. Yes.
Legal. So I was gonna bring up cannabis. Like, it's legal. So cannabis is legal in California, right? It's soon,
okay.
Soon to come back. Like, you know, we'll be smoking. Is that a positive or negative to our mind? Because I am more kind and I am more, like the things you mentioned that meditation brings, I feel that I become more of a nice person when I smoke. Is that affecting or is that a positive for my mind overall?
Well, I can speak from experience. from a long time ago. And whatever legal repercussions have long since expired. I inhaled. But it was in New Zealand and it was 40 years ago, so I don't think anybody can give me any trouble about it now. So I experimented for a couple of years pretty intensely with some THC. And what I found was, it made me feel more mellow and, it brings out some sort of nicer form of your side of your personality. It certainly doesn't make you aggressive as alcohol tends to do. But I also found that it was really bad for my concentration, and it made me lazy. So when I came to the point that I really began to understand that I've got this incredible gift, which is my brain and my body, and we each have one, and this is like something, I can't make one of these. And I have one. And it's only going to last a certain amount of time. And I want to take care of it and utilize it to lead the best life I can in all senses of that. I thought I need to be able to use my mind. I want to optimize my mental performance. And I think cannabis inhibits that pretty severely. So I stopped smoking marijuana and I practiced meditation. And after a while, I lost the desire to smoke marijuana because I got the same effect, but better.
Yeah, it sounds like exactly what I'm talking about. Like what you're talking about. I've done meditation too, and it's helped a lot. I need to go back to.
And the point is, it lasts and grows.
Yeah.
With marijuana, you smoke it, you feel cool for a while, and you listen to the music, and it's really far out. And, I had a good time, But the problem is, it wears off, and it doesn't. It doesn't grow. It just sort of, you go up, you come down. You go up, you come down. Actually, you probably have to have more to get the same effect. So it's not going anywhere really positive in the end, I don't think. I mean, I believe it has its medical uses, and on the other hand. So, but as if you want to develop if you want to optimize your mental performance and the potential of your mind, I don't think it helps at all.
Great.
So does meditation help make people more empathetic towards others?
Possibly. I'm going to give a qualified answer to this. You've all heard of the samurai. They meditated. They did Zen meditation. Their concentration was very good. So, but they became extremely focused and extremely skilled at killing people. So I think there was something missing in their practice. So I would say that a complete meditation practice, yes. But an incomplete meditation practice, which only consists of developing your concentration and the power of your mind, that power can be used in any way. So yeah, maybe. Depends on what you're doing in your meditation.
So the love needs to be incorporated in the meditation?
I think so. I really believe that, and that's why when I describe meditation as the contemplation of the infinite, I think that kind of meditation will automatically bring this feeling of love and empathy and connection. Yes.
And then you mentioned yoga as well. Do you see
Yeah.
the combination of yoga and meditation? I mean, I've done some yoga, not a lot, but to me it feels like it's all the same. It's the same thing. When I'm doing yoga, I'm in meditation, but it's more focusing on the entire body rather than just the mind, though.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description.
Yeah.
Of course, they're from the same tradition. So the whole thing is actually called yoga. What people understand by yoga today mostly is the physical postures.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of the 8 limbs of yoga. So the Ashtanga yoga means 8-limbed yoga. Includes the yoga postures, breathing exercises, different types of concentration on the chakras and visualizations and the spiritual meditation and some ethical principles. There's a whole system. And the yoga postures is just part of that system. And meditation is actually a larger part of it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's part of the same tradition. And it's, the idea is to develop body, mind, and spirit in harmony.
Very cool. Did you want to play something?
Oh, a song,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
of course.
I
I've been
enjoy
talking
it.
about music.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a song I wrote. I must credit where credit's due. I have a wonderful songwriting partner. His name's Josh Friedman, and he teaches guitar in Los Altos. And he taught me for a while, and then we ended up writing songs together. So This is one of our songs. It's called When I Close My Eyes. I will tell you a little bit about it because this song has a sort of big, it has a whole philosophy within it. Okay. It seems to me that human beings, what's enabled us to kind of take over the planet is three features. One is, the famous opposable thumb.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this instrument with which we can create and build, and we've kind of built civilization with it, right?
Yes.
But we couldn't have done that if we didn't have this developed brain and some measure of wisdom, hopefully. So we're creative with the hands, and we can develop wisdom, certainly intelligence, sometimes wisdom with the brain, but we couldn't have done that if we didn't have love for one another, because human beings can't grow to adulthood without community. They get eaten. We're children for like 14 years, 15 years before we can survive on our own. No animal species, that's pretty almost unheard of in the animal world.
Don't last too long.
So you have to have community. So these three things, love, creativity, and wisdom, have enabled human beings to take over the world. If we develop them in the right way, I believe that we can create a heaven on earth. And, that'll eventually go to the stars. We'll take our civilization to the stars. If we don't do that, I think it's better that we don't, spread it.
Yeah.
But, our hands, that are creative, and our heads and our hearts have enabled us to do this. So I sort of wrote this song about the hands and the head and the heart.
Very cool.
What is it called?
It's actually called When I Close My Eyes.
Okay, I'm doing it live.
Oh, really? Okay. With my hands I'll build a spaceship in case we run out of room. Like a wizard who helps everybody's dreams come true. With my hands I only wanna do good. Wouldn't you do that if you only could? With my head I'll write a song about saving the world. Every river, every robot, every boy, every girl. Singing wisdom is the one missing link, connecting what I feel to all that I think. When I close my eyes, my heart can open wide. Now I see who I'm meant to be. When I close my eyes, I no longer wonder why. Now I see who I'm meant to be. With my heart I'll turn your sadness into unicorns, and rainbows with more colors, and roses with no thorns. With our hearts we can travel so far. Together we can aim for the stars. When I close my eyes, my heart can open wide. Now I see who I'm meant to be. When I close my eyes, I no longer wonder why. With our hearts we can travel so far. Together we can aim for the stars. When I close my eyes, my heart can open wide. With our hearts we can travel so far. Together we can aim for the stars.
Very good.
So that's my
Thank you.
prayer for humanity.
Thank you. It's a very good one. I like the unicorns. Well, thank you very much for your time and coming down here and joining us here in the Monterey Bay. And does anyone have any other questions?
I do. I want to say something.
Okay.
Everybody should read my book. Actually, two books. I have a sensible book and a silly book. This is my sensible book. This is the one that people actually thought was worth translating into lots of languages.
Okay.
It's called Close Your Eyes and Open Your Mind. It kind of goes with the song a little bit. That wasn't really intentional. And it's an introduction, or it's a practical guide to spiritual meditation, and it's available on Amazon and my website, and etc. And this is the book I know the little kid that wanted to be a wizard. He wrote this book.
Okay.
When I was 55 or something. So it's a fantasy comedy. You know, Tolkien was my idol. You know, as a writer, he's still my idol, certainly in that genre. So I delayed writing a fantasy novel, which I'd wanted to do since I was young, because I thought, I can't write anything as good as Tolkien,
Yeah.
and I don't want to write a pale imitation, which has been done too many times, right?
Okay.
So I thought, how can I do this? And I finally realized I write humor. So and Tolkien's one thing he can't do is write humor. There are only like 2 jokes in Lord of the Rings, and neither of them are funny. So I thought I'd write a fantasy comedy novel, and I did. It's called Real Dragons Don't Cry, and I must say I'm absurdly proud of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely am.
Book 1 of 5. I'm writing. I hope that the whole series will be published posthumously. That's the plan.
Yes.
So that's a
Very cool.
and if people want to find all that stuff, they can go to my website, themonkdude.com.
TheMonkDude.com.
It's sad, isn't it? Yeah.
Such a good brand, though. It is such a good brand, because I mean, you definitely stood out at the conference.
Yes,
for
I'm difficult to miss.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But it also it was interesting to see a monk at a tech conference. That was one thing that definitely kind of piqued my mind, because I'd never seen that before, and I've been to quite a few.
I'm fascinated by technology. I think it's cool if we do the right stuff with it. It's fantastic.
What was your favorite from the global event? Do you have a favorite?
I really enjoyed I should remember his name. Maybe Rubenstein from Asana, or Asana, everybody calls it.
Asana,
Yeah,
okay.
the Asana web software, which I
That
use.
was actually a really good one.
He gave a wonderful talk, and I forgot his name. He's the founder, and he's into meditation. He didn't talk about it there, but I've heard him speaking about his own sort of spiritual journey and transformative experience through meditation, and he's trying to embody that in his really successful company.
Yeah, the company culture was definitely what stood
Yeah,
out in that
exactly.
talk.
I found that really inspiring. But there was a lot of great stuff there.
Very cool.
And Derek Anderson's an amazing guy. I'm lucky. I live down the road from Pivotal, where they hold. He hosts every week,
Yeah,
so
the Silicon
every
Valley
month
chapter.
rather. So I get to meet him, and he's really great.
Yeah, he's a very, very great guy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time again, and I hope you guys all enjoyed it. And
Yeah, thank you.
See you again. Thank you.
Thank you.